Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be here today to talk to you about some of the miracle stories that are happening right here in our own city, in our own state, every day. My name is Tony Kausha, and the title of our show is Tony's 50,000 Coincidence Miracles. Please note, this show is not about religion, and we're not trying to change anyone's religion, and we're not trying to get you to join any religion. It's just about miracle stories. I don't know of any religion on the planet that doesn't talk about miracles. That's why religions begin, because they have something that's telling them there's really a God. But we're not going to get into that. We're going to just talk about miracles and leave the decisions about all that up to you. So we don't care what religion you are. We just want to talk about miracles. If you are an atheist, I think you'll enjoy the program as well, although I can't guarantee you'll remain an atheist very long after you hear many convincing stories, coincidence kinds of stories about miracles. You can email me your own stories if you wish. We'll try to use all we can on the show. I can't guarantee we will, depending on volume and time, but you're welcome to send your stories on to us, and we will mention them when we can. You can send them to the following email address. But please notice that if we do use your story, we won't mention your name. We'll keep you anonymous. And we suggest that in your story, when you send it to us, don't use your correct name. That way anyone listening will not be able to figure out that it was you that sent the story in. The email address you can send your stories to is very easy to remember. It consists of 2 words and 3 numbers. The first word is Tony, spelled Tony, and the second word is and, spelled A-N-D, and the numbers are 777. So once again, the name is Tony and 777 at AOL.com. Well, let us begin. We have a couple of great coincidence miracles to talk about today. To start with, I awoke one morning, and when I awoke, I got an inspiration. And I'll just remind you all that the word inspiration is 2 words. It's the word in and then the word spiration. So when you get an inspiration, it means that the Holy Spirit is talking to you. And when you get an idea, that's 2 words also, the word I plus deo. And when you get an ideo, if it's a real idea, an idea, it's 2 words, and the word deo is the word for God. So when you get a great idea or you get an inspiration, both of those words mean that God is talking to you. So I awoke, and as soon as I awoke, I got inspired with a feeling and a sense that our book was doing a lot of good. This was around Christmas time in the year 2021, and many people were buying our books and giving them to people as gifts. And so I was inspired that it was doing a lot of good. It was inspiring a lot of people to have discussions with God. The wisest thing that anybody can do, really, is have discussions with God, because you talk to Him and then He talks back to you with ideas and inspirations. And so the wisest thing you can do is talk to the source of all wisdom. So I had that inspiration, and you can tell when God's talking to you, so I was confident He was telling me that, and I was delighted to hear that the book was doing something out there. And later at breakfast, when I was having my breakfast, I got an email on my iPhone, so I opened it up, and sure enough, it was a person who had just finished reading the book, and their message was pretty simple. They said that the book had a absolute profound influence on them in their life and in their communications with God and their understanding of what God was inspiring them to do. So that's all I needed to get as a coincidence miracle, right? I wake up with the inspiration from God that the book is touching a lot of people and helping a lot of people to learn how to have conversations with God. And then the first thing that happens to me is I get an email from someone that's telling me that the book has had a profound influence on them, and they said they just finished reading the book. So I'm sure God was pulling strings to make these 2 coincidences happen at exactly the time they did. The next thing that happened was that as I was getting ready to go to morning mass, I was inspired to go to a different church this morning instead of the one that I was planning to go to. I get inspired to do that sometimes, to go to a different church, and I talked to Jesus about it. I got further inspirations that there was some reason why I'd be delighted that I'm going to this church. It was just that Jesus wanted me to go to this other church. Well, so I did, and I was blessed profoundly because the homily by the priest, the lecture by the priest, did not mention my book, of course, but his homily was all about how we humans need to be going around on the planet Earth experiencing the presence of God during our lives every day. And God is present everywhere. God made us. God loves us. We go through a whole life, and some people never talk to God, never ask Him what to do, never ask Him for inspirations. But the priest was making the point that we can ask God for help. We can ask Him about choices and what things to do. And we need to pay attention to His inspirations and the inspirations and the thoughts that we get right after we ask God questions. So, if you read our book and if you've been listening to our radio shows, you know that I've been for a long time inspired to tell people the same thing. So it certainly had a great impression on me, that God told me to go to a different church this morning. So I'm seeing a different priest, and he's giving a different homily, a different lecture than I would get at another church. So I was getting a precise homily that kind of summarizes what my book talks about, that we should be asking God what to do. The whole purpose of both of my books, by the way, if you don't know it yet, the purpose of both books was to help people to learn how to have discussions with God and how to be able to ask God questions and get inspirations. And it's not so far-fetched, of course. Certainly there's a priest giving homilies about doing that. But if you read the Bible at all, especially the Old Testament, you find that there were men and women talking to God all the time throughout the Bible. There's 20,000 conversations in the Bible. People have studied it and added up the conversations that are in the Bible. God is talking to people 20,000 different times in the Bible, so it shouldn't seem so impossible that we can have discussions with God. And I often tell people, and you probably heard it many times, we've had 10,000 saints over the last 2,000 years, 10,000 saints, documented lives of saints, and all of the saints I've read about, they all talk to God, they all ask God what to do, and they do what God tells them to do, and that's why they became saints. I mean, if you read the lives of the saints, you'll notice they ask God what to do, and they do what God tells them. And Jesus is our model, and Jesus said that He always did what pleases the Father. So if Jesus can say, I always do what pleases the Father, then He must be asking God what to do, and He must be doing what God's telling Him to do in order for Jesus to say, I always do what pleases the Father. And Jesus is our model for humans. Jesus was both God and man, and He's our model. We're supposed to be like Him, so we're supposed to be talking to God, listening to God, and doing God's will, just like Jesus was doing. I know none of us gets as perfect as Jesus was, but that's why I brought up the 10,000 saints, because 10,000 saints got close, at least if you talk about north and south, if north is getting close to God, well, the saints, their lives were lived more in the north than they were lived in the southern part of that equation. So hopefully I'm convincing everybody that we can talk to God, we can hear God, and the priest was doing a great job of it, I must say. And I talked to the priest after the Mass and told him how delighted I was. Well, the next thing that happened was later that day, I was reading the Word Among Us magazine, and I jotted down the date and the page number. So the Word Among Us magazine, most people know about it. You can Google it. That's what it's called, Word Among Us magazine. If you research and look up December 29th in the year 2021, page 51. So in that issue, it's the December issue of the year 2021, And on December 29th, on page 51, the Word Among Us magazine did an excellent job of explaining on just one page, explaining how we should all be talking to God, we should all be listening to God. We walk around in His presence all day long. He's always there with us, and we need to talk to Him and ask Him for inspirations and pay attention to the things that He's telling us. And so that confirmed this whole day for me so far about coincidence miracles. I remember as soon as I woke up, I was inspired that my books were doing some good, helping people to communicate with God. And then while I was having breakfast, I got an email from a person who said that specifically. So God orchestrated those two things to happen. And then I went to a church that I was led to go to, a different church than the one I was going to attend. And the priest giving the homily that day gave a homily exactly about, almost practically summarized our book. Talk to God, ask God questions, pay attention to God, and He will inspire us and He will tell us what to do. And that was in a homily. And now I get home later that day and I'm reading the Word Among Us magazine for December 29th. That was the particular day I was reading about on page 51. And it also says the same thing. So that's 4 coincidences that happened to me in one day. And they all lined up. They all said the same thing. And so I hope, I've brainwashed everybody today that we can talk to God. We can ask Him. It's very simple. You ask God a question, and He does answer you by inspiring you and giving you ideas in your mind. That's the process. So it's very simple. The 10,000 saints in history, they learned that. They talked to God and asked Him questions. And, you can read the lives of St. Francis of Assisi, St. Anthony of Padua, St. Clare, St. Teresa of Avila, St. Teresa of the Flower, and you'll find out that all of these saints were talking to God and doing what God was telling them. So I guess what I'd appreciate is if some of you would email me and tell me if you're having these experiences in your life, and tell me about the coincidences in your life where you've asked God to do something, and tell me how it worked out for you and how blessed you were. And then I can put your responses on the radio and give more evidence of more and more people doing this. By the way, if you just share this with people, if you would share your miracles, your coincidence miracles with other people, that would do a lot to change the world practically overnight. The more we share our stories of how we notice God in our life and how God is talking to us, the more we do that, the more other people will try and they'll ask us questions about our experiences. And the more that happens, the more the world is going to become a better place. I would encourage you to just simply tell people about inspirations and ideas and ask them if they know what the words mean. It's not so difficult. People readily understand and they readily agree. When you tell them that inspiration is 2 words and idea is 2 words, and it means that God is talking to you, they can grasp that. And then when you tell them about your own experiences of coincidence miracles and your own experiences of getting inspirations from God, it's not so hard to believe. And then you tell them about 10,000 saints and tell them that they all spoke to God, and there's 20,000 conversations in the Bible where God is talking to people 20,000 times, people become convinced. And it's not so hard to convince people to talk to God. Now, the next thing that happens is they talk to God and they get answers and they know it works. It's that simple. After you talk to God for 5 minutes and you get an answer, that's all you need to know. God bless you all, and I'll talk to you next week.